All right, welcome back to Unsportsmanlike Conduct here on KALA. We are now joined by former Iowa Hawkeye basketball player, NBA player, Acie Earl. Acie, thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, fun times indeed. So thanks for the invite.
Got a couple questions we want to ask you today. First, you played at Iowa in the early '90s under Tom Davis, the winningest coach there at the University of Iowa. Just tell us what it was like playing under him, and you also played on some really good tournament teams as well, going there to March Madness.
Right. When I was about a junior, sophomore, juniors, when Coach Davis came in, and that's when they went 30-5 and went to the Elite Eight. So there was a lot of hoopla and just fun times around the Iowa Hawkeye basketball program. They had changed their recruiting a little bit. They played the up-tempo style, some of the same things that you see now. Shoot a lot of threes, press, fast break. So that was very exciting and intriguing to a lot of recruits. And so, I was fortunate to be recruited by head coach Auburn right now, Coach Pearl, Bruce Pearl. He recruited me, and the rest is history, really. We had some good runs. We went to the tournament, I think, 3 times, in my 4 years of playing. And, had a good run. I think we tied for third place in the Big Ten twice.
You talk about all these exciting moments and the great runs you made. Is there one exciting moment in college or professional that really sticks out to you?
No, there's tons. I get that question a lot. I think my freshman year, we had beat North Carolina here. So my redshirt year, we beat them down there in the Dean Dome. And then we came back here and beat them my freshman year that I played. And I had 6.6 blocks and 6 rebounds. And on that court at one time, there were, I believe, 9 or 11 NBA players. And so the announcer goes, I think in a few years we're going to see a lot of NBA guys on this. So to play against like those Carolina guys in my freshman year, have 6.66, that was great. Then my sophomore year, we beat UCLA here. I had 30 points and 15 rebounds. So that was like, okay, now I'm coming. I think my junior year, we lost to Iowa State there, and I had like 36 or 38 points on a broken, or not broken ankle, but a sprained ankle. I didn't walk for like 4 days. And then my senior year, obviously beating the Fab Five here after Chris, passed away. So, you have tons of things through college that kind of define. And then, being in the NBA, I had a 40-point night against Boston back in the Garden. So I had the record in the new Garden for about a week or two until somebody broke it. So, there's tons of stuff. I played basketball at a high level for almost 30 years, from high school on. And I got stories from junior high, stories from high school. We had never beat Quincy in my high school time at Quincy. So we beat them there my senior year. So that was great. My 6th grade year in league, we had never lost in 2 years. My dad was coaching. We played Moline Park Board. And one of our best players was gone skiing. And I scored 50 points in a game in the 6th grade with no 3-point line. So there's you could go from time to time. Overseas, I had some great things as well. I was MVP 3 times of my 8-year career overseas. MVP of Kosovo, MVP of China, and MVP of Turkey. So there's stories upon stories.
And certainly that high level you were talking about, really a lot of good accomplishments led you to getting drafted by the NBA. I believe you're drafted by the Boston Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us what that was like for you, because we always hear you only get drafted once, so just give us that
Yeah,
experience.
well, it was all year I was projected to be a lottery pick. And unfortunately what happened was the young guys came out, and that's the new thing that you see now. So these agents were pushing these young guys to come out because of the money. So I think of the first 10 or 11 picks, 7 or 8 were young guys. So I think the first pick that year was Chris Webber, and then second pick was Sean Bradley, and then third pick was Anthony Hardaway. And it just went on down the line. J.R. Ryder and Rodney Rogers, and I think the only two seniors in the first 11 was Lindsey Hunter and maybe Vin Baker. Maybe Vin Baker came out early too. So if the young guys don't come out, I was a surefire lottery pick. So I slipped because the young guys came out. And the thing at all pro sports now is you see draft young because you're going to get them for longer, and you could pay them cheaper over their rookie contract, and then by the time they get to be older players, you have to pay them. But so slipping to 19 was kind of a disappointment, and then the caveat was I was a Laker fan all my life. Magic Johnson is my favorite player. Growing up, I named my son Kareem from Kareem, and me and my dad and my uncles were all Laker fans. I had one uncle that went to Indiana State with Larry Bird. He didn't play, but he was there at the same time, and so he always used to joke with me when I was a kid, like, "Oh, Celtics going to draft you. Celtics going to draft you." And I was like, "If Celtics going to draft me, I'm going to throw up." And, and Celtics ended up drafting me. So that was, the caveat in it.
One question I got for you. Everyone talks about differences in today's NBA and the past. What are kind of some of the differences that you notice watching the NBA today and playing back then?
It's huge differences. The center used to be the anchor of the defense, the post player. People play what they called inside out first, which you threw the ball inside, you established the inside game, then you kicked it out. You got the opposing team in foul trouble. Your center was your best defender. If you listen, sometimes you hear Kevin McHale talk, and you hear Charles Barkley. You might hear Patrick Ewing. You might hear Kareem talk. There was only 100 to 200 to 300 threes attempted in a whole season by a team, and now you got guys like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson who attempt 400 apiece. The scoring obviously is up because there's more shot attempts. I heard a couple stats. The Showtime Lakers, which at that time played the fastest, they would be 14th or 15th today in fastest shot attempts up, being put up. And so they'd be slow in today's game. There's 15 teams, I believe, that attempt more three-pointers than Golden State. So the game is obviously changed. The big guys do more now. The big guys bring the ball up the court. They initiate the pick and roll. They play more of a free-flowing game. And so it's just different. I think the average, I was telling somebody the other day, the average, there's all NBA teams last year averaged over 105 points a game. When I played, I think the average was 90, maybe 88. So more shot attempts, more free-flowing game. Fouls are called differently, obviously. I think I was a victim of a few flagrant fouls that weren't called. That I would be shooting free throws to this day. So yeah, just different game.
We've always looked back at the past. Certainly for me, I'm a Chicago Bulls fan, and looking back on their time, seeing when MJ, played, I think it was a lot more physical back then. Do you still think to this day it still is very physical at times, or do you think it's maybe softened up a little bit?
Oh, it's softened up tons. But that's the league had to make it that way to make it a fan-friendly game. The average fan doesn't want to see somebody get laid out. They don't understand what that means. They think, "Oh, why would you do something like that? Oh, that's so mean. Why would you put Michael Jordan on the floor?" Best players can't be on the floor. And so, they had to soften the game up and make it enticing and make it exciting for the global and world market. And that's when you started to see the global transition of the game. And I could see it as well because after I left the NBA in 98 or 99, playing overseas, I played against probably 15, 20 guys that played in the NBA. I played against Hideo Turkoglu, Mehmet Okur, Yao Ming when he was young, Shinzing, Murdan, Turchan. I played against guys as they were starting to come over. Sergey Monia, I don't know if you remember those guys that came from the Bulls in Portland. Victor Kriapa, I played with Victor. He used to start my car in Russia before I came out. It was so cold, and he was like 17. He was learning how to drive. He was like, Acie, let me start your car. So those guys would go out and run circles around the parking lot, have my car warm. So, those guys were starting to pick up the NBA game. And it was exciting for them to see the running and jumping and dunking. And so, like I said, the league had to make the game more fan-friendly.
You talked about you can't put the best player on the floor. Well, obviously back then the best player was Michael Jordan. Kind of what was it like playing against him and kind of just the presence he brought to every game?
Well, I was fortunate to play against him the second time when he came back. So, and you guys might have been too young to paint the picture. So his first game back was Indiana. That was the game he did like 3 for 21. He struggled. Everybody said, "Oh, he's too slow. He doesn't have it. The game has changed." Then the second game, I believe he went to either Orlando or somewhere. I thought maybe, and then he kind of he might have had 15 or 20 points. And then the third game he came back was at Boston, and we got on the third game back. I think he hit the first 10 shots. And everybody was going crazy, and there's like, he's back. And then after that, he went to New York and got the double nickel. And so, to be a part of that, to because we were like, you were a kid growing up, you see the YouTube stuff. I was a kid, watching him. I was in college. You don't see it, you don't feel it, and then to be a part of that, like watch it, was like, oh, okay, this is what they're talking about, So, yeah.
Really playing up against the GOAT right there, Michael Jordan. Certainly there were a lot of great players back in his day, too. I think it's certainly up for grabs on who was really great. But not kind of going, when you were done with the NBA, you went to overseas, and like you already talked about
8 years, 12 countries.
Yeah, so give us that experience, like for you, was it different at times? Like,
well, it's all different.
I mean, like
I played in, like I said, 12 countries. So, I mean, I played in countries as high level as Turkey and Russia and Poland, and played as low level countries as Australia, Austria. And so that's the biggest thing is, if you could stay in the top leagues, which I did mostly, and then, just playing EuroLeague, which I did. I played EuroLeague a few years, and that's the top league. You play that on like Monday or Tuesday, and then you play your whatever country you're in. You play that on Saturday and Sunday. So, to play in Turkey, Poland, Russia, France, top league, and Serbia, and then play some of the lower leagues as well was fun. So I played in Australia. That was really fun. Played against, Brett Brown was my coach in Australia. Starting to see, I think I played against Ben Simmons' father when he was there. So, just to kind of put it all in perspective and play against guys and see how the game was changing and play a different style. To play with the Eastern European players was so fun. I played with 3 or 4 guys that played against the dream team, the first dream team, like the Serbian guys. So I played against some of those guys that were on that team with Tony Kukoc and Dino Raja and Petrovic and all those guys. So, yeah, it was, it's an experience, that, thinking back on it, it was really fun.
You said growing up that you were a Lakers fan. Obviously, they've made the headlines recently, making the big trade for Anthony Davis.
Yeah, I used to play AAU with Rob Pelinka.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's from Lake Forest, I believe.
With adding Anthony Davis to the Lakers, some people say that they gave up too much. Some people say it's a good trade. I want to know what you think about it.
Well, I think there's a few parts to it, and I've heard both sides of the story. Listen to the ESPN analysts. Not giving up Kuzma was key. I was scared they were going to give up Kuzma, so that's good. I don't like they gave up 3 draft picks, 3 future number 1s, so they're going to be hamstrung for a while. They did botch the salary cap deal by not making that deal after July 30th, and so they're going to have to clear at least $9 million in cap space to create another max spot. So they are good. They are, and that's the thing when you don't have people who understand what they're doing. You're going to make some mistakes. So you had to have a great capologist, and I tell people all the time, if you can understand a salary cap, you'll have a job in pro sports because the owners and people don't. Mm-hmm. They just trade this guy, trade this guy. You have to understand what the salary cap implications are. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know if they're going to be able to get a max spot. Obviously, I don't think guys are going to take less money because that's about $10 million less than the spot. They might have to separate that money, split it with some shooters, but I don't think there's anybody going to go for that for 5 or 10 or 15 million. JJ Redick's probably not going to go for anything less than 10. I don't think Danny Green's going to go anything less than 10. So you're kind of stuck with guys like Wayne Ellington. You might be able to get Jay Crowder off the buyout market. But there's 40% of the league are free agents, and so there's going to be a lot of guys out there, and there's going to be guys as the dominoes start to fall. You're going to be like, well, do I want to play with it? We're already starting to hear this guy doesn't want to play with this guy. This guy wants to play with this guy. So there could be some pieces that's going to fall into play. It all's going to start with where Kawhi goes, where Durant goes, where Kyrie goes. Then when they go, everything else kind of sets into play. So it'd be interesting to see. It's going to be a fun NBA summer for sure.
You played for Toronto during your career. What was it like seeing them get their first NBA championship?
Oh, it was great. I was an inaugural player. So building that from day one. Rookie Damon Stoudemire was the rookie, and then we had Marcus Camby the next year. And then watching them grow with Vince and Tracy McGrady and Chris Bosh, and the list goes on. So it was great. It was great to watch. It's great for the city. I think that has boosted Canadian basketball. To R.J. Barrett's from there. The first great player that really came out of there, and for our day is Jamal McGlure. Who was like 1 year, 2 year All-Star, played at Charlotte, now assistant coach there. So, I think the NBA had a great effect on Toronto and Canadian basketball as it did in the world, where we started to bring players over. So, definitely exciting.
Obviously tonight's the NBA draft. I kind of want to get your thoughts on. There's a consensus obviously up top with Zion Williamson. Mm-hmm. Some people say that his Duke teammate could possibly have a better NBA career. What do you think about that situation?
It could be because he could score. I think he's a better free throw shooter and better 3-point shooter now. And so, if you're a stat guy, which I tend to lean to, I tend to be a stat guy. R.J. Barrett could probably outscore him, and have more statistics, more assists, more steals. But Zion has a better effect on the game, and that's with analytics you can't judge that. That's kind of like Charles Barkley. He had such an impact on the game because when he chose to rebound and when he chose to block a shot or get a steal or a dunk or get a double team, and so. I think star power, it's Zion for sure. But, R.J. Barrett, I read his dad is the leader of Canadian basketball and had him playing Canadian basketball since he was 16. So he was playing, like, world games and Olympic trials and stuff like that. So he's better tested to come in and help a team, I think, right away for the long term.
We see today now you're out in Iowa City doing a lot of stuff with basketball. Just tell us now, what are you doing now today? Now that you're not playing basketball no more.
Well, I came back. I came back and was coaching a little bit semi-pro in high school, and then I started doing my camps, with Nike and Phenom, and so I'm fortunate to do camps with the YMCA, Phenom, and Nike all through my last 4 or 5 years, and so we've done camps here in the Quad Cities at the TBK Center. And then we do stuff, Camp Wapsie in Cedar Rapids. I do that once a week, and then I do another camp. I'd either do my own personal camps or personal training all throughout Iowa. I'll do another one at the Oskaloosa Y this August. And so a lot of people, you could just always search Acie Earl basketball training or Acie Earl basketball camps, and that will come up in the Google search of what's out there.
Yeah, you do these basketball camps, and you see a lot of times former players, they kind of give back to the communities and they help out the kids. How important is that to you as a former player?
Well, you know, they're all kind of different. I think different camps have different reasons behind them. But our Phenom camp is a twofold camp. For the summer is for development and for exposure. So so my son was fortunate to get invited to the National Phenom Camp in San Diego last year. He was an all-star. We're taking him back this year. So for a lot of the better kids, this is an avenue to get exposure. You know, when I was a kid, we didn't have that at that young of age. You know, I went to a couple as a junior, sophomore, junior, and senior, but that's it. They only had 3 or 4 of them in the nation. You know, now there's 100, 200 of them. Everybody has one. So I think if you have a kid and your child has a potential to play in college or wants to go to the next level, the Phenom camps are good for them. But also what you say is we also put the element of the parent and the child for development as well. And like I said, when I was a kid, we didn't even have that part. I think Augustana was our best development camp around, and there's still a good camp out here. And Ambrose does a great development camp. But I think a lot of parents and kids don't do the development part. You know, I was fortunate coached by my dad that he took me out, you know, made me shoot, made me dribble, made me do things that a big guy didn't do. So that helped me with my college and pro career. And a lot of parents just don't do that. And so that's what other part of the camps that we do is development, not just go play and have fun and play one-on-one, you know, develop your skills as well.
Was it always something you thought about when you were playing? So when you know that your playing career is coming near to an end, you just want to get involved in some way still?
No, not really. It was just kind of like Nike had contacted me a few years ago because I did AAU, and I was kind of one of the biggest AAU guys around the Quad Cities in Iowa. Phenom contacted me because, you know, my son was pretty good and they wanted to come to Iowa. So Phenom is in 34 states, but I was the first to bring them to Iowa. So a lot of times, you know, YMCA has contacted me because, like I said, I've done so much. A lot of times it's just that you just go out and do some stuff. You don't really know what you're doing, but it's helping. People like it. You're getting good reviews. Parents like it. You know, since I've been coaching and training, I think I probably put 50 kids to college, you know, coaching. And my daughter's in college now. She plays at Lawrence University in Appleton, Wisconsin. I'll probably have, by the time my other daughter comes out of high school, I'll probably have 15 D1 girls that I've coached and have trained. So it's just, sometimes you start to do stuff, and then all this comes to you, and it's like, oh, how'd you put this together? And I was like, I didn't really think about putting it together. I was just training kids and making them better and coaching. And all, you know, Phenom, Nike, and the Y, you know, they just come to me like, hey, can you help us with this? And, you know, I'll do it.
So you talked about all your son's accomplishments and how well he's doing. You look at the NBA today, you see some people like Bronny, LeBron's kid,
Yeah.
you look at Zaire. Kind of, what do you tell him to kind of get out of that shadow? You played in the NBA. LeBron and Dwayne Wade played in the NBA. How do they kind of get out of that shadow of their father's name?
Well, I think one is, I was cognizant, even though his name Acie, Kareem Earl, you know, we go by Kareem. So he doesn't always have that Acie Earl son. I mean, people know he's Acie Earl's son, but a lot of times, you know, he'll show up to a camp and it'll be Kareem Earl. Nobody will put 2 and 2 together until he starts playing, or I come around or something, or somebody will tell him, like. So I think that's what you see with LeBron's son. Even though he's named LeBron, they call him Bronny, you know, and Dwayne Wade named him something different. So I think we've seen that over the years, where we've seen Patrick Ewing Jr., or whatever, Patrick Ewing III. We've seen some of these stars' kids, and the name goes first, and then we're starting to looking like, oh, you know, he's not as good as the dad. And that's a lot of pressure for a kid. So, I always tell my son, just go out and play your game, stay in the gym. Everything you win, everything you do, chalk that up, enjoy it. But, people are going to come at you because you're Acie Earl's son. And you always got to stay in the gym to keep that, so keep those kids from coming away because, they want to use you as a rep. As an AAU coach and high school coach, I heard it a million times. Oh, my son did well against Jeff Horner, or my son did well against Bruner, and that's what they want to. I walk down the street all the time. Oh yeah, once I played against you, I scored on you at Lincoln Park. When you were 16. So, people are always going to use that best time against him, and so he has to be cognizant of that.
With the Iowa Hawkeye basketball team coming off what was appeared to be a good season last year, getting knocked out by Tennessee in the tournament. Going into next season, they'll have somewhat of a different team. Tyler Cook will not be there. Isaiah Moss transferred. Jordan Bohannon will be out because of hip surgery. Hopefully he can come back, though, sometime during the season. But what do you think now when you look at this team? What do they kind of need to do to overcome this adversity?
Well, I think they're starting to put it together. I mean, I don't follow it that much because I got all my stuff going on. And I'm a big fan of sports and basketball in general, so I watch a lot of college, a lot of pro. I think they got the transfer guy to come in from the grad transfer from, where did he come in from? Somewhere in the Midwest. They just signed a grad transfer guy. I can't remember who it was. But he's a little well established. I think they're gonna lean on Wiesenkamp a lot more. It's fun to see him. He used to come to our tournaments and stuff a lot. The dad was coaching teams, and so fun to see him. With college basketball, it's never a finite deal anymore. It's always players moving. If you look at the transfer portal and the transfer, there's 700, 800 kids transferring every year, which is just insane. And I don't know how these college coaches do it. So you really have to have your eye on recruiting and development. And that's how you see the rules have changed now, where the college coaches can now be on campus and work the players out in the summer. When I was in school, that didn't happen. So the development is key, where you got to have a coaching staff 24 hours a day, 365 years, working these players out. Develop. Because it's such a free-flowing, you think you got a guy coming back for a senior year to have a nice run, and he's transferring. You got a guy who can smell a little bit of NBA money, they're going to go because the money is so much. I mean, when I played, the salary cap was $50 million. Now it's 105, and so guys are going to go because you got agents and family people behind them saying, hey, let's go, let's test the waters. And the rule is kind of where you can go test the waters and come back. If you don't get drafted, you come back. You don't hire an agent, you can come back. It's all this stuff that is murky and muddy. And so, college coaches, they have their work cut out for them, but that's what recruiting and that's what scouting and that's what it's all about. So, they're going to make their money this year for sure.
You look at all the players that make the transition from college to the NBA. You yourself was one of them. How hard is that transition, or how difficult was that transition for you and possibly players in today's league?
It's harder then, and that's because you played against men. Nowadays, I'd love to see the stat. The average age of an NBA player now is probably 25, 27. When I was playing, it was probably 30, 32. So guys can come in and basically, you're just playing against a grade or two up versus, my first game, NBA regular season game, was against Patrick Ewing. He's 30-something years old. He was 10 years older than me, right? Then I'm playing against Rick Smits. I'm playing against Felton Spencer. I'm playing against Kevin Duckworth. I mean, these guys are men with kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just coming into the NBA. So it was harder then. So it's easier now for these guys. And I think that's why they feel like to go, because it's like you're going to go play with your comrades, because these are the guys you've been playing AAU against and going to camps with. And so Dwayne Wade and LeBron, even though they're the same class, I think they're 3 or 4 years apart. Melo and Chris Bosh and Chris Paul. That's a tight knit group, but they're all relatively the same age, and that you didn't see that. So I think it's easier for guys to make the transition because you're playing against the same age of guys.
Well, Acie Earl, thank you so much today for being here with us. We really appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks for having me. So any bold draft predictions tonight you guys got? I got one.
What do you got? Go ahead.
I got Bowl, man. I love, obviously I played against Manood, his dad. I think his skill set, I think people are scared of him being so thin and his family history. But I got Bowl sneaking into the lottery.
All right. Yeah, Logan, I know you made a top 5 mock draft yourself. So I know it was Zion, Joe Morant, R.J. Barrett. I know you had Cam Reddish at 5, right?
Cam Reddish at 5 and then Darius Garland at 4. But I do expect New Orleans to try to get out of the 4th pick.
I do too. I'm hearing that. I also like that Taco Charlton kid. Yeah, I like him. I think he should go first round. And I like the kid from Gonzaga, the Japanese kid.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly going to be a fun night tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Acie, thank you so much once again for being here with us today. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Yep, sounds good.
We are going to take a quick break here. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Unsportsmanlike Conduct on KALA.